Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and welcome to my film journey, where normally I talk about the things that I have been watching and picking up for the past week. But today I wanted to do something special in lieu of the recent Criterion sale that was over on Barnes & Noble's website and also in stores. Most stores have them, not mine necessarily, but we just had a 50% off sale for an entire month for some Criterion titles. And I started thinking a lot about my history and my love of Criterion, and I just remember this being the first boutique label that I really fell in love with, and a lot of the discoveries that I've had from this label, on top of discovering just these different film movements, these different directors, you name it. And I started thinking a lot about my history and my love of this medium itself, and also just the label itself. And so I decided I wanted to make a recommendation video, and unfortunately this is after the sale, so sorry about that, but I feel like it is good to bring up at the moment because everyone is talking about Criterion right now. So I wanted to bring up 5 discoveries that I've had this year. It's only been half a year so far, but these are 5 films that I want to kind of recommend to you. These are first-time watches that I saw this year, and these are things that I really adored, and a couple of them, you might be surprised, these are my first time watches. And I've heard about these movies for a long time on some of them, and you'll see my choices here. But before we jump into my choices, let me know 5 discoveries you've had this year, or 5 film masterpieces that you discovered from Criterion. If you haven't discovered 5, just let me know which ones you have discovered. But yeah, let me know in the comment section down below. Alright, so the first film I want to talk about is from Jacques Demy, who is a director I'm still very fresh on. In fact, I actually have the box set that's like right here, you can't see it, but I have the box set from Criterion, but I still have yet to dive into it. However, I did upgrade my collection of The Umbrellas of Chernobyl, which is the musical from Jacques Demy, and this is a marvelous musical that I highly recommend. This is the 4K edition of it. It is a beautiful edition of the a new restoration of this particular film, a new 4K digital restoration from Cine Tamaris, I think is how you say it, by Matthew Demy, who supervised this. But this is a marvelous film, and one that has a lot of layers to it. I was kind of enraptured the first time I watched this movie just because of the spectacle of the Technicolor and these sets that are very lush. It almost feels like every single scene is a painting between our 2 cast members, and I'm gonna butcher the heck out of their names, but Catherine Deneuve and Nino Castelnuovo, I think is how you say their names. But this is just a phenomenal film, and a phenomenal looking film, and one that I feel like every single word is a lyric because everything is sung. So it's one of those non-traditional type of musicals where literally every line is a musical note of some sort, and it does eventually break down into different musical pieces. But this is one that I am just enraptured by, and one that I highly recommend people check out if they've never seen this before, or if you're not a fan of musicals, give this one a chance, because I feel like this is one that can break some doors down. But if you're a fan of something like Singing in the Rain, this is something that is straight up for you, and I highly recommend it. So moving along from Umbrellas of Chernobyl to a film from 1993, a documentary that just recently came out in the collection. We're talking about the 32 short films about Glenn Gould. Now, this is a Canadian composer that lived in the 20th century and had really influenced a lot of the things going on in the music space, because he reinvented Bach in a way that a lot of people found very intriguing. And this is directed by Francois Garrod, who I believe is from Quebec, or at least that Montreal area, the French-Canadian side. But it is really fascinating to see this film because of the way that this is shot, because it is 32 short films, right? These are 32 different vignettes about Glenn Gould's life, and it kind of tells a little bit of a story of his childhood all the way up to where he's at until he passed away. And it goes through these different compositions in such elegance, but also doesn't feel like it is something that is over your head. If it's not something that's super highbrow enough to where you're going to scoff at it because of how artistic it is. It is something that is really marvelous in a really fantastic way, and I feel like it's a very human film. But it's one of the most interesting documentaries I've ever seen in my life, and I cannot stop thinking about this movie, and I highly recommend people check it out because it is something that is super fascinating. My love of music and movies come together with this particular film, and this is one that really stuck out with me this year. All right, so moving away from Glenn Gould to a French double feature, and yes, I know I'm cheating a little bit here with this pick, but it is meant to be two films that are watched as one. This came out in 1986, and I love this set. We're talking about Jean de Florette and Manon of the Spring. I have a hard time pronouncing these French titles, but this is directed by Claude Berry, and my God, is this one of the coolest adaptations of a novel I've ever seen. I will admit that I haven't read the novel. However, this adaptation is a glorious piece of Technicolor, and this 4K is stunning because every single piece of shot is marvelous to look at, and it's a sunny French countryside. Pretty much a story, a familial story about a family pretty much being wronged, especially in the first film, and being taken out of the land that they were supposed to have, and the consequences of that in this small community where everyone knows each other. And this is just a marvelous piece of work. Just the family dynamics, the drama, you kind of care about everybody in here, even the people who you're not supposed to care about, on top of the visuals of this stunning, just really quiet and serene looking countryside for this particular piece of work. But this is just an incredible 4K. I love this particular set, and it has a bunch of special features on it that kind of just enraptured me in terms of the type of story this is. But I'm a huge fan of things that are like English period pieces, so if you are a fan of stuff like that, definitely check this movie out because you know, this is something that is a great discovery for a lot of people who have not seen this type of work. All right, so moving away from France to the Depression era in the United States to a film from 1973, one that I've been wanting to get for the longest time, and I'm so glad that it is finally out on Criterion and also just on Blu-ray here in the States, and I'm talking about Peter Bogdanovich's Paper Moon. Now, this is actually played by real-life father Ryan O'Neal with his daughter Tatum O'Neal as they play these two rambunctious characters who are pretty much both hucksters in their own right, but we have Ryan O'Neal who is going around selling door to door to people and pretty much, you know, being a huckster and trying to trick people out of their money. He runs across his real life daughter Tatum O'Neal, who is not actually his daughter, who's kind of been abandoned, and they take a liking to each other, and also you know, kind of one of those buddy cop type of movies, but it's a father and daughter in a way, and it becomes really sweet because they start learning lessons from each other, and also as they try to both be hucksters themselves, learn a lot of things along the way. And it is just a really charming film, and one that, you know, feels very American, but in a positive way, even if it was during a time that was very hard for a lot of people. And this is just a movie that Peter Bogdanovich had just came off of The Last Picture Show, and so, you know, these movies are very different tonally. However, both in black and white and are shot beautifully. I'm just really thrilled to finally have this movie again, and honestly it just keeps playing in my head. This dynamic between these two is just such a riot, and I highly recommend people check it out if you are into some fun comedy and also some sweet drama. And the last one I want to talk about and recommend to you is from the late David Lynch, and I'm a little late to the party on this one. It's probably the most accessible film that he made, but I love his work after watching Twin Peaks last year for the first time. I'm talking about The Elephant Man, and this is an incredible film. This is starring John Hurt as the titular character, but we also have Anthony Hopkins here as a London surgeon who is helping him out. And this is a story about empathy, understanding, and pretty much just the cruelty that is other people, and the pretty much the pain we can put with, you know, I guess onto others that are different from us. And this is a movie that I think is incredibly important right now, but also just incredibly important for the time that it came out. It's crazy to me that David Lynch made this as his second feature, because it is quite a difference. And then he eventually made Dune, which is quite a different tonal shift from this movie. But this movie is just a really great drama that I think touches a lot of people's hearts in the right way possible, of this really kind, gentle soul that is John Hurt's character, who's actually based on the true story of a freak show performer, John Merrick, who he is playing. And this is an incredible story about a triumph of the will, of the human will and the spirit. And I highly recommend people check this movie out. The tears will probably show up. But anyway, that is just 5 films that I watched for the first time this year that I wanted to recommend to you. I hope you enjoy my collection here. Obviously, the Criterion Barnes & Noble sale had just ended, so I'd love to know what you picked up as well. So let me know in the comment section down below what 5 discoveries you've had this year, and then also let me know what you have picked up for the month. I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out the channel where I am doing this really fun film journey wheel, where I'm going to be spinning different boutique labels and having different topics talking about that. So be sure to check out the channel in the space, and we'll talk more about that here in the coming future. I will see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.